You brought up factory transmissions, and one question I have for you is: are you ever able, or were you ever able to hop on a custom semi factory or AJ tuned tranny? And like, what was that like, and how does that differ from the bikes that the rest of us can go out and buy in a dealership?
So I rode Jet and Hunter's bike,
Hmm.
uh, practice bikes, although their practice bikes are pretty darn good. Now, I don't know what's done to their transmissions. I'm
Mm.
not sure. I do know that their bikes felt like it was cheating. It was so easy to ride.
Mm.
Um, let's see. I also rode a JGR 450 at club. Um, I also rode Millsap's JGR 450,
Yummy
Yamaha
days.
JGR, yeah,
Hmm.
which would have been 2012. So I rode that bike. I don't know about transmissions on those ones because these were all practice bikes. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, imagine. I imagine that the practice bikes are. It'd be
Yeah,
important to match that transmission to the race bike.
for sure.
Um, the biggest differences in Supercross on a 450 at least is like you've got maybe a polished neutral, so that way you can go into first gear like most everybody. I'd say it's pretty common that nobody wants to ride in first gear because then you run the risk of shifting from first to second and just ending
Yep.
up in neutral,
Hmm.
which especially when you're talking Supercross and jumping, you don't want to end up in neutral. So, like in my 450 days, I would avoid first gear at all costs because I had stock transmission and I knew there was like a 50-50 shot. If I'm going from first to second gear,
Hmm.
I'm hitting neutral. And on those bikes, like if they're running and you basically can't hit neutral if you tried. So
Mm.
you can go down to first, you can get that grunt out of a tight corner,
Hmm.
shift up to second in the air, and
And
know with
boop.
confidence that you're going to be landing in second gear and
Yeah.
not neutral. Yeah.
That's see, yeah, that would be killer for like especially newbies that are learning shifting in the clutch, like little kids. That would be sick. But like, how much of an advantage is it to have your
Huge.
second gear go super long, your third gear go super long? Is that a big advantage for 250, 450 pros?
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably one of the biggest separators. I mean, just the first gear thing alone in 450s, every single track I can think of, first gear would have been an advantage in at least
Mm.
one to two key sections to where
Yeah.
I either couldn't do the three in because second gear I couldn't get the pop that I needed and I
Hmm.
wasn't going to go down to first. Or it was just made 10 times more difficult. So it was like
Mm.
I would be inconsistent with the obstacle or just it would tire me out because it was so much effort or it just took so much setup in the turn.
Hmm.
When you watch the factory guys, they do not. I mean, Jet is a very good example of this, but a lot of guys are doing a good job. That small to big triple N that we were talking about,
Yeah.
it's amazing how they can just rail that tight rutted corner with no setup whatsoever and just
Hmm.
yeah, just carry that speed
Yeah.
right in. If you were to watch me do that on my 450, I would be like, all right, up. Okay, let really get set up here for a second
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like,
And
yeah,
point and
like
shoot. Yeah.
yeah. So I'd lose probably a half second just sitting there like trying to get that corner set up right and make sure I did
Hmm.
everything perfect where they can just kind of carry through and just piece it together. When I talked to
It's
Cade, that's what he's
insane.
like, that's the difference. I was like, what's the
Hmm.
difference between like uh let's say a ninth to 15th place guy and a first to seventh
Hmm.
place guy, let's say. And he goes, they just carry a little bit more speed everywhere. And I know that seems like an obvious answer, but it's like
Yeah.
it's not an obvious connecting the dots of like, okay, step one, step two, step three.
Hmm.
Where when you watch me ride a supercross track, a lot of it looks mechanical in the sense that like, okay, and breathe, okay, set up, turn, all right, and go.
You know what's funny
And
is
he,
I can see that wheel turning when you the way you ride. Like, oh, I know exactly what he's thinking. He's like, watch that corner. Okay, we're inside. Elbows up. Okay, here we go. I,
yeah,
that's so
because you
funny.
have to, or you get yourself killed. That's
Yeah.
why it's so interesting when I watch the top 450 guys, especially just
Yeah.
like attacking every inch of the track the whole time, and it's like, man, it's so hard to do
Yes.
that.
It really, and you brought up a really good section too. Like, to think like most people would see that and even take it like a step further back than you. They'd break early, come in, choose their rut, get in, and then, you know, look down, shift, and, you know, the mere mortals and stuff. But um, watching somebody like a Tomac, or I'll even take it back, like someone like who's a Ferrandis or Savachi, the way that they can know where they want to put their bike and, like you said, point and shoot, and it's just one smooth process. It's not like a you can't tell what they're thinking. You can't tell that it's like a, hey, here, this is step one, step two, step three, and then we're up. It's all just one fluid motion. That is just, it's crazy to fathom. I know, like you mentioned, from your perspective, it's difficult, but you're doing it a lot faster than the rest of us. And just to think like that on your motorcycle, that is a super talent, man. That's like superhero level stuff. So just the fact that so many people are just like, oh, there we go. There's a 3 in out of this 2-foot section. We're up, you know, like it's just crazy to me to think about that.
Yeah. And maybe I guess that's the one thing I wish TV did a slightly better job of, is like explaining to people how difficult it is. You'll see somebody bust out a huge quad and they'll just kind of like brush it off of like, oh yeah, he did it. Cool. And they'll just kind of, I know they're trying to carry the show and they're talking about a million other things, but there's so many things that are happening that are incredibly high level.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool if they took a little bit more time to explain why and why certain things are so difficult. If you guys enjoyed this podcast clip and you want to listen to full episodes, you can do so on Spotify and Apple Music. If you want to send in your own video submission, you can join us in the Moto Academy family inside of the Moto Academy app by just going to themotoacademy.com. That's also where you can sign up for a class. Okay, guys, see you next episode.